So, my story today comes from me.
Ooh.
I am my own source.
The highest scientific source.
Yeah.
Right there. Luke,
It's always a good sign, isn't it? No red flags, no.
So, on Friday morning, I was working unusually early, and as I was heading out, I saw this gigantic orange flaming ball in the sky with a tail of fire behind it.
Oh, wow. Does it look a bit like this?
It looked exactly like that, James, because that is the picture of it that I took.
Oh, let's get a bit closer.
Oh,
there we
even
go.
better.
What is that?
Well, I'm going to tell you. Any theory,
wow.
Corey is not allowed to know because he knows. But Jam, any theories of what it might be? Don't try too hard. I want to be able to tell you.
I'm going to theorize that it's a alien spaceship coming to collect Luke and take him back to his home world.
That's a pretty good guess. That's a really solid guess.
Okay, well, look, I'm not going to lie. I would consider myself to be a generally fairly level-headed person most of the time. But even I was sat there and I was like, this is how it happens, isn't it? This is how the movies start. It's just a normal day. I'm just on my way to do some work, and then suddenly, alien invasion. I was actually quite. Yes, I'm not annoyed if it is an alien invasion. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't be surprised either. I'd be like, yeah, I saw that coming. So anyway, I looked into this, and I was googling things like giant flame in the sky, weird orange thing in the sky, which is actually quite a difficult thing to find. But it turns out that this actually happens quite a lot. So it's not anything to be immediately worried about. You haven't died yet, and it does happen a fair amount. It happened in April, for example. And every time it happens, there'll be an article about it in a newspaper like the Daily Mirror or the Metro, in which some
very
people...
good newspaper.
Yes. My sources today are me and the Daily Mirror. I do have reputable sources other than me and the Daily Mirror.
Your
which
Daily
are highly
Mirror,
reputable.
just your normal, not even the newspaper, just your Daily Mirror. You asked yourself in the mirror, you said, Luke, what do you think about it? And Luke said, I think it's a very good idea. That's your source, is it
Perfect
not?
conclusion. There we go.
So most of the time, the quotes will be something along the lines of, it's a shooting star, maybe, or it's aliens, as Jamp said. And guess what?
It's both.
It's aliens.
No, both of those theories were wrong, actually. So, according to Astronomy Ireland, on this one that happened in April, which looked pretty much identical to the thing I saw, objects like this in the sky are usually satellites plummeting back to Earth. And the fact that I see this happening with my own eyes made me really want to share it and talk about what happens when we get rid of a satellite. So up above the Earth, floating above us right now, not only are there loads and loads of satellites, thousands and thousands of satellites, there are also thousands of broken up pieces of old satellites just zooming around, and they're a real problem for other satellites because basically they are tiny pieces of matter, tiny little pieces of metal, and sometimes not even tiny, sometimes quite large, flying around, and they no longer have their propulsion system, so we can't do anything about them. They're just flying around, and this is called space junk. You might have come across that in the movie Gravity, where one of the first things that happens is they get a bunch of space junk flying towards them, and they have to get back to their spaceship or something, and basically it destroys their spaceship, and they have to get back somewhere safe. I don't know. I only watched Gravity once. It was like, all right. Space junk is little bits of broken up satellite, and that sounds fine, except for the fact that it's traveling incredibly fast, and because it's in the vacuum of space, there's nothing to slow it down other than if it smashes into other satellites or people. Now, take a guess. Champ, how fast do you think space junk is traveling?
Trying to make me go back to my physics days at school. I genuinely couldn't tell you. I don't know. Very fast, hundreds of miles an hour.
Hundreds of miles an hour. Well, space junk is actually traveling at about 18,000 miles an hour.
Ah, that is quite a few hundred.
A few hundred. Which is, if you're somewhere that doesn't use miles, that's about 28,000 kilometers per hour. For context, that is about 6 times faster than the fastest bullet ever. So, or the fastest commercial bullet.
Yeah.
Weird that there's commercial bullets, isn't there? So, funnily enough, these days, we try, well, not funny that there's commercial, sad that there's commercial bullets as well, just to specify.
Sad that there's bullets, to be honest. Let's just get rid of them all. I don't think there should be privately owned bullets and publicly owned bullets. Just none, I think.
State-appointed bullets. There you go.
Nationalize the bullets. So, funnily enough, these days we try very hard not to create more space junk. So when it comes time for a satellite to die, we don't just leave it there, and we don't just sort of shoot it down, although we have done before. There was a story about a fighter jet shooting down a weather satellite a while back. Instead, according to NASA, what we do is we use the very last pieces of fuel of a satellite to either shoot it out further into space, where it's out the way of all the other satellites, or we use the fuel to slow it down from its orbit so that it just falls back to Earth.
Can I just point out that we're not getting rid of space junk here? What we're doing is is making it someone else's problem.
Making it Earth junk.
It's either Earth junk or like deeper space junk.
Okay, so yes, in some, well, there is actually, I didn't want to get into this, but there is a whole sort of area of orbit put aside for like a graveyard of satellites, and it's much further out. And I agree that, yeah, we now then have to travel through that if we want to get to the moon or something. But it is much further out, and it's not interfering with our satellites. But yes, it's obviously not a particularly long-term solution. But you are incorrect that you're partially incorrect, that we are sort of making it Earth junk, because what happens is that as this matter, especially with small satellites, falls back to Earth, it sets on fire because of the friction of the air around it as it's falling. Now, this happens pretty much every day. We just take these like multi-million-pound devices we made, these big lumps of metal, and just let them fall towards us from space at another speed for you, Jamp, thousands of miles per hour. Now, that doesn't sound very fun, does it?
More than hundreds of miles an hour.
Many hundreds of miles per hour, actually. And they fall back to Earth, and the friction caused by the atmosphere and the air makes them burn up, and they just sort of vanish. Now, that's what happens for smaller objects. For larger objects like space stations or larger spacecraft, hey, we'll have to do it one day. We've got a big space station up there.
Sorry, it's just for big objects like, space stations, we do let those drop too. But
Yes.
we try and make sure it's not over somewhere like London. Maybe Leeds. Leeds is fine.
Aim for the ocean. Always prefer.
Well, exactly. So they don't completely burn up before they reach the ground, but the spacecraft operators calculate exactly how to guide the fall so that it falls into a place called the spacecraft cemetery, which is in the Pacific Ocean and is pretty much as far away from any human civilization as you can find on the Earth. Although I guess some fish probably die in the big smash back to the sea, which is
Maybe a whale or two.
Yeah.
Imagine just being a whale. Just something. Wow, I love this area of the ocean that doesn't have any of those weird people in it. I'm going to have a great. Oh no, what is that? Bam, conk on the head. Insta death for that whale. Poor whale, man.
Poor whale, indeed. So this all sounds fine, right? Now, just to give you one little last dose of anxiety, according to the European Space Agency, some parts of satellites and the upper stages of rockets, like tanks, which are designed to resist heat, don't actually burn up in the atmosphere completely, and sometimes they hit the Earth rather than the sea. But miraculously, no incident has ever been reported of people being injured by space debris. So, in summary, my story is this. If you ever look up to see a gigantic burning orange trail in the sky, rest assured that it's probably not aliens, it's just a giant ball of burning metal from a satellite, which will probably burn up before it gets to you, and if it doesn't, nobody's ever been hurt by giant flaming satielites falling from space, so you're going to be fine.
There's never a first time for anything.
Okay.
Never ever.
Well, hold on. No. I need to qualify that for a second. You can't say you'll probably be fine. As we drop more and more space stuff from, more and more things from space, it's ever more likely that someone will be injured. Is it not?
Oh, yes. Well, ever more likely than very unlikely.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
So
feel like
you'll probably be fine. Someone might not be, but you probably.
I'll probably be fine. I'm pretty sure I'll probably be fine. As I said, I'm fairly sure I'm immortal. There is no evidence to show the contrary yet. So I will be fine. But I don't think you can tell our lovely listeners that they'll be fine. I feel like that'd lead them to run out under space debris. Feeling
Well, and that'll be fine because it'll probably burn up.
I don't like this messaging we're putting on the podcast.
So you saw at the top of this story, you saw the kind of smudgy orange burning thing I saw in the sky. I do actually have a much better recording, courtesy of the European Space Agency. Jamp, if you'd like to just pull that up so everyone can see. This is what I actually saw, basically. I, from a distance, was seeing this little orange smudge and wondering what it was. And had I been able to get a good image of it, I would have seen this actually much more terrifying burning mass plummeting towards
That's
the
like
Earth.
an explosion that's just traveling really fast.
Well, it is an
It
explosion.
is,
Actually,
well, that's what it is, technically.
if you were able to listen to the sound of that clip, one of the men who's in the space station actually says, "Don't worry, we got that explosion on film." And that's my story.
Well done. Great story.
If you enjoyed that clip, head over to patreon.com/SCI Guys, where you can find the full show. Or you can stay here and catch up on old SCI Guys episodes. Or you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at SCI Guys Pod to find out when we're doing more live shows.